Alrighty guys, welcome to your Friday afternoon. Welcome to another week as we kick into the weekend. Very excited to be bringing you this week's episode of Knockoffs with Nick. I'm of course your host Nick and brand ambassador here at the farm. This is going to be a big one guys. As far as I can see, we are on out there to the world of the Instagram social media spheres, Facebook, all of us. I think we're on, which is fantastic. So welcome guys, really pumped to kick into this week. So of course we have a couple of exciting things happening of course here as well. Arguably one of the best 2-for-1 offerings that I see are out there at the moment. As far as value, in terms of knowledge, we have got it all covered here today, so we're really, really pumped. But today's episode is really all about the 2020 vintage, which is now available for our first bottle 2020 vintages. Really excited to get kicked off into that. But of course, the two people standing next to me on either side, we of course have to my left, we have Siobhan Wigan, who is of course our winemaker specialising in the whites. And of course, we have next to me over this side, a very familiar face who's been around for a long time, the right side, of course. It is our customer service manager, / business intelligence manager, / very, very self-professed Riesling aficionado. Is that fair?
I guess so.
I think you,
yeah.
I dare say that. But this is going to be a great show. We're really, really pumped to have you. So I think we're going to get kicked straight off, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
What we have in front of us is two wines, of course, that many of you know and have tried, that are very loved as part of our Hentley Farm collection. We of course have our 2020 example of our beautiful Blanc de Noir, and of course next to that our freshly released Riesling, of course a 2020 vintage. John, I'm going to start with you if that's okay. I just kind of want to get into this and just find out a little bit about, I guess, the story behind the Blanc de Noir. How did it sort of come into the portfolio? And then we'll kind of look at a couple of things of vintage if we can.
Sure, yeah. So 2014 was the first time we made the Blanc de Noir.
Okay.
And the name came about, Blanc de Noir roughly translates to white from red.
Okay.
So we were making a sparkling wine from red fruit.
Cheers, by the way.
Cheers, yeah.
Cheers.
Sorry.
This is incredible. It is Knockoffs after all. It's Friday. Let's get it sorted. So,
Yes.
so 2014.
2014 was the first time we made it. So at that point in time, we were looking for something to use in the restaurant. Really, we were serving a sparkling in the restaurant, and we decided that, you know, why not make our own? It's part of our ethos if we can source and make our own things where possible. So that was the challenge, to make a sparkling wine from red fruit from the Western Barossa.
Yeah.
And the Blanc de Noir was born. So at that point in time, we actually didn't talk about the varieties.
Right.
Because Keith in particular was concerned that people might judge a book by its cover and not want to taste sparkling Grenache, which is what it is. It's predominantly Grenache.
Yep.
So this year is 70% Grenache, 30% Pinot. But Grenache has this amazing flavour profile, and especially if you're picking it early like we are for the sparkling wine, when it's still got a lot of natural acidity. It's got these beautiful red fruit flavours, strawberry flavours that really come through, and they're complemented as well by the Pinot characteristics that you're getting. So, and that's what I see. This wine is a wine that is just fruit forward. It is fresh and vibrant. It's not, doesn't take itself too seriously. It's just to be enjoyed with friends and family and sons if you can.
Absolutely.
And Quinny will tell you this is the best idea he's ever had.
So, because obviously the typical blend of sparkling or champagne sort of style, you know, is Pinot Meunier rather than Grenache. And so, what you know, I guess comparing the 2020 vintage to say the 2019, for those who would like to, I guess, know a little bit about what they would be potentially going and grabbing. What would you say the difference is from a vintage variation, I suppose?
Vintage variation, sure. I mean, stylistically, the wine hasn't changed greatly. So if you're talking about vintage variation, specifically the 20 vintage, it was just excellent in many ways. If you're looking specifically at a vintage and not about global situations, it was.
It's been a weird one.
Yeah, I keep saying it's the vintage we'll never forget. That's for sure. But basically, near perfect ripening conditions. So the days were warm but not excessively hot, really mild days, nice cool nights, which is perfect for natural acidity, and we had sort of a long, even ripening period, so the fruit had longer of the time to accumulate flavour, and the wines are reflective of that, so they're deeply concentrated in flavour and great acidity, and yeah, it was a good one.
Absolutely. I like, obviously it's beautiful, fresh, elegant style. From a winemaking perspective though, for those who may not have necessarily tried this before, is this a method traditional style? Is this sort of a different sort of Charlemagne style?
It is Charlemagne style, yeah. So the base wine is made here on site, and then the secondary fermentation happens off site in a pressure vessel. So the secondary fermentation, which is what creates the beautiful bubbles that you see in the wine, happens is like one large vessel and it goes to bottle from there. So
that's what we release at young, fresh fire.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the thing what people like so much about this, right? Is that it's nice to have those biscuity, bready, brioche notes that you can get in a beautiful champagne. However, this was always meant for that sort of really elegant, sort of refined style. So, so definitely great job. I think so. But I guess to know a little bit more about you guys specifically, if that's okay, because one of the whole ideas about this whole knockoff section is to know a little bit more about those who actually work here. And you guys have had quite the journey, obviously, to get here. Do you mind just kind of going through a little bit about what your journey was to get to where we are here at the farm?
Sure.
Ladies first.
Ladies first, of course. Very quiet. So I am not from the valley originally. I studied winemaking straight out of high school, and I guess chose this career path because my dad worked in the wine industry as I was growing up.
Okay.
Wine was always on the dinner table. I thought it was really interesting. I was sort of looking at, it's an excellent combination between kind of science and nature.
Right.
So I studied at Adelaide, and then after that I travelled and did vintages for a while. So I worked in South Australia in McLaren Vale, I worked in the Hunter, went to New Zealand, California, just came to the Barossa to do another vintage. It was another vintage on my list. And I fell in love with the region and a man. So I stayed here.
It all comes out.
I stayed in the Barossa. I worked A Lumber for a few years. And then I worked in the Adelaide Hills for a few years. Specifically, I guess both of those places working more with white wines. And then in 2014, Henley Farm started making white wines on site. So previous to that, they were contract made off-site. And we put in all the facilities and equipment to go make them on site, and that's when I started to help out Henley with the white wines.
It's quite the journey, international globe-trotting.
Sure. I worked in Spain as well, I didn't even mention that.
What?
That's probably the most.
Where in Spain?
In Rabat.
Okay. Well, if there was Spain to visit, that would be the one. So, awesome. Well, thank you very much for obviously letting us know. It's always good to just get that sort of background, I suppose. So, Mr. Matchy.
I've heard of Spain. No, be there. But as far as my journey, born and raised in the Barossa, clearly.
So for those
multiple generations, I guess.
I have what seven generations.
That's the case.
So for those of you who don't know, this is 7 generations. That's huge. So this is right back to almost when the Barossa really started. 1847.
That's where we go.
Can it get back to that?
You
don't go far as 1847.
No, it won't.
It
looks like it, maybe. But no, my journey is more growing up in vineyards, studying Adelaide wine marketing. During study, you do a bit of excess work with in cellar doors, McLaren Vale to start with. JAG management job in Adelaide Hills, and then got back to the Barossa, and for 10 years. 10 years we were at the same winery. Happened to be Siobhan's father-in-law being the chief winemaker of Peter and the Wines, and I was there for 10, 11 years.
Okay.
And then came knocking eventually when I left that job. Came over here and joined the team 4 years ago.
Okay, so again, quite different journeys, I guess, obviously different roles, of course, as well. For those, obviously, who are wondering, what is a 9 to 5 sort of like for you guys? How has that sort of changed? Obviously, I know both of your parents obviously changes quite recently, myself, of course, as well. So it changes things pretty seriously, but how has your role changed? Because obviously, we'll start with you and go back.
Sure. Clearly I started as a cellar door manager. Now I'm not in that role. I'm more of a glue between departments, whether it's logistics or information for sales guys, and getting all those bits and pieces together for who requires it. Looking at spreadsheets, that's how apparently I enjoy
spreadsheet Olympics. I believe that's a thing, and I believe you're a contender, that's what they say.
I think there's members of the accounts team might be independent in-house, but don't mind doing that. But it's 9 to 5, and as Siobhan will know, and you know as a parent, 9 to 5 doesn't normally mean 9 to 5 anymore. What is that?
100%, absolutely.
But it's good fun, and it's a great place to be, as we all would appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And for yourself, obviously, it's pretty intense. Obviously, there's one particular time of the year, being vintage, of course, which is probably more demanding than others. You're pretty much on call all the time. 9 to 5.
9 to 5. Well, it does vary between between vintage and non-vintage times, but I guess a lot of it is tasting wines, tasting juices and ferments during vintage, tasting barrels if for blending, if when we're pumping out, and then managing.
Which some think is hard, right? But it actually is when you're tasting that many ferments and all. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was just basically saying, I've got to drink wine all day, but at the end of the day, it's actually pretty taxing on your palate, right?
For sure. Yeah, so it's true, and it's tasting wine, not drinking wine.
Which is a big difference. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, do go on.
And I guess as well, so there's 2 of us in the winemaking team, Andrew Quinn, who's featured a couple of times on these episodes, and myself. So I'm more of the technical, operational winemaker, so I'm looking after the lab and sort of logistics and those sorts of things as well.
Amazing. So I guess it's good to know, I think, which is, we've got 2 wines today. So the Bubbles, obviously, incredibly cleansing, very, very easy to drink, arguably too easy to drink. But I think, but I think it's a good opportunity to move on to our Riesling. Now, Riesling is probably a bit of a misunderstood varietal, if I'm perfectly honest. It's changed pretty considerably, I guess, over the years. Do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown as to sort of how that has changed? I guess, stylistically from, way back when, German almost style, which is, a lot of the foundations of where we are here in the Barossa and Eden Valley as well. How that sort of changed, and then we'll talk a little bit about the actual vintage, if that's cool.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I guess historically Rieslings were a lot sweeter, and there is still definitely a perception that Riesling is a sweet wine.
Yeah.
We don't make ours sweet. It is dry, bone dry, but it's an amazing variety. It's got just so much flavour, and even if you're cooking it quite early, it's got so much flavour. If you're out in the vineyard tasting the berries, and it's just beautiful, aromatic wine.
Because it's becoming quite popular, I guess, now, and from your historical, I suppose, background, it'd be pretty interesting.
The Rieslings are a little bit different.
Most of them were Hock style, is that what they were called?
I don't think they
That's what it is,
No, but I think you find that Riesling came about, particularly in the district of the Barossa, when technology picked up that you can actually prevent oxidation, and I think that's important in the 50s, 60s, I think, that sort of era. Unfortunately, I think palates went a little bit sweet, which then went, Riesling went in that sort of tangent. And there were people flying the flag in the 80s against that sweetness, and making, I'm sure if you delve into certain cellars and certain winemakers in the Barossa, you find some great examples of 70s Riesling, 70s, 80s Riesling that are holding up nicely now, and of that dry style which we make now, and which the majority make, and for a good thing. And without that sort of foresight, we wouldn't have this whole thing today.
Because they age so beautifully, right? And I think that's probably one of the things. And while we are, of course, renowned here, in the Barossa for growing and producing some of the best reds, not only in the country but arguably on earth. I'm going to say, I've said it, but there's some really excitement about this particular varietal getting a little bit more popularity, I suppose, and changing, I guess, people's perception about this crazy sweet product which was around for so long before. I guess. Tell me a little bit about this, because the way that you make Riesling is a little bit different to your sort of typical sort of style, or has been previously?
It has been previously, yeah, for sure. So so the Riesling comes from Eden Valley
Yes.
as well. It is not grown here on the property.
I'm going to cheers you again.
Cheers.
I'm sorry. This is very easy. Cheers to you guys. Cheers.
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 So yes, the Riesling, we are not suited to Riesling growing here in the Western Barossa. This comes from Eden Valley. We've got 3 growers in Eden Valley where we're taking the fruit, and it has, the style has changed slightly in the last few years. We are making it a little finer than it used to be. So I would consider this is reasonably traditional Riesling winemaking, in that it's reductively handled, so we're preventing oxidation at juice, and it's cold settled, clean racked, commercial yeast, stainless ferment, so it's very much trying to capture the aromatics in that Riesling has just naturally. And I said it before, I'm going to say it again, 2020 was an amazing year for natural acidity. Riesling is an acidic variety anyway, but just excellent.
So, thank you very much. I guess it's so elegant. I think that's what I love so much about this. And I guess from a Riesling aficionado like yourself, I mean, you know, I guess I'm very curious, what are your thoughts on this versus what we've had, say, previously, and these sort of, you know, different styles? How do you feel this one's so
I noticed this particular wine, it just shows the concentration of vintage. And you think of Riesling, you don't think of concentration, but that has just gone ballistic. Even in the last couple of weeks, I may have had one. Getting those couple of
Matt's
weeks.
like to see the evolution, so we taste it every single day
Yeah.
to make sure.
It's important that we have someone on QA.
It's very
But no, honestly, it does show that in spades. And I guess it's just that the natural acidity is really carrying that on the palate as well. I think it's great. It's wonderful.
Well, there's a bit of a pairing here, guys, of course, as well. This would arguably be, one of the pairings for bubbles, and obviously Riesling there as well. Thoughts on as to why that is, if I can obviously hand you one. Because we are, of course, and it is worth letting people know who have been here previously, we are standing in what was the old cellar door, now what we are calling the cottage. The long room, which those who have been to the restaurant previously, is now the current cellar door. So a couple of changes, obviously, off the back of this crazy time in 2020, most definitely. But talk to me a little bit about obviously the pairing, and it's a funny one when people are talking about pairings. Some people say it's a bit of a pseudoscience, whatever it is. I guess talk to me a little bit about your thoughts, if you can, and I'm going to have one as well. If that's all right. So.
What?
Sorry, it's unfair. Cheers as well. I think it's
Cheers.
important. I can, and we have zero shame from us. So
I guess for me, the pairing, you've got these beautiful salty, briny oysters, and then the Riesling, which for me is showing a lot of florals, like white flowers and white florals, but it's citrus, so much citrus, lemon and lime, and it's I guess the equivalent of dousing your fish and chips with a wedge of lime. It's like that kind of salty, briny with the citrus.
Now these are Coffin Bay oysters, of course, which is very, very exciting. We get them in every day. So thoughts on the pairing? Why this works?
Yeah, look, I always go on the fact that I'd rather just have good food and good wine. And if they work, fantastic. If they don't, I'm still enjoying both parts.
Right.
That works. The saltiness, as Siobhan said, it's just it's the freshness here of the Riesling. It's just
and it does really bring out some of those floral notes we were sort of talking about, which I really love. So, which is cool. Now, if you have just joined us, of course, I'm here with Siobhan Wigan, who is our winemaker. And of course, Daniel, Matchy, Mattschoss. I can't call you Daniel. It's strange.
Mum does.
She does that all. Fair enough. When you're in trouble, or
anytime.
but that's fair enough. So we're here first with two of our very esteemed members of Hentley Farm, looking at the current release, Blanc de Noir, of course. Beautiful Riesling from 2020 this year. Our first one as well, from what I understand, which is great. Now, if you have seen any of our previous episodes, this is that time when we get into our quick fire round. There is no buzzers, but there are a couple of questions here which kind of just give a little bit of an idea, I do have an official black book here as well, which is very official, of course, as you know. It's been casually stapled, yes, of course. But if you know how this quickfire round goes, answer as quickly as you possibly can, and your time starts, and I'm going to go 1, 2, if that's okay.
Oh, I have to answer first every
You have to
time?
answer first
Okay.
every single time.
Okay.
Quickfire round starts now. Go. If Riesling and bubbles were suddenly horribly extinct, what would you drink?
Beer, gin, Campari, Grenache. I actually would never run out of things to drink. Yeah, no, I'll be fine.
You'll be fine? Okay, fair enough. Good.
I might. And I don't like your hypothetical. Yeah, gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic?
Yeah, yeah. Go.
What, in your opinion, will finally break the internet?
That hasn't already happened.
Of course.
Oh, look, I don't want to specify. If anything happened to one of the world leaders, I think maybe.
That would break the internet?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Matchy?
I think if Riesling actually breaks the internet, I might not be using it anymore. I don't know.
Makes sense. If given only one genre of music to listen to for the rest of your days, what genre would you choose?
Rock.
Rock?
Yeah.
Okay. Couple of artists?
Well, yeah, sure. Paul Kelly.
Yeah.
Was the first one that came to my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Cool.
My music genres are quite eclectic.
They
and
are.
They're quite wide and varied. And if that all goes,
Yep.
I think I'll just go. Let's go somewhere that's just tried and true classical.
Really?
Let's go dive
That's
in.
the only one?
Because it's been there for ages.
Okay.
Just go. Okay, well, I'll just join that movement.
Very good.
Yeah.
What is your favourite pocket of the Hentley farm estate?
Yep, I'm going to say E Block, which is up on the hill.
Very good.
My favourite Grenache, which is my favourite wine from the property, comes from E1 up there on
Okay.
the hill, and it's got the best view, amazing view from up there.
Perfect.
It
Matchy?
is. E-Block is secondary.
Okay.
Top of Matt Rufus is amazing.
It's beautiful.
But I think working more at the winery end of town,
Yep.
just walking to the car in the car park,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite dramatic how Matt Rufus looks over
Mm-hmm.
the estate,
Mm-hmm.
and it's quite moody, and you can actually see how the estate is quite unique in the fact that you've got this, and you're looking over D-Block where Beast is made, and then over Solidor and into Greenock Creek and Beauty Vineyard. It's quite I guess the overview of the whole of Henley Farm. I think it's a very good.
I
And you
love
get
it.
the sunsets there as well.
Yes, you do. As I do, because I walk out when it's sunset.
You love
At
it.
this time of year. Yes.
What is the most useless talent that you have?
I know, I'm really good. This is quite obscure.
Go.
I do a bit of baking at home.
Okay.
And I am really good at eyeballing a volume or like the weight of butter. So like if a recipe calls for 200 grams of butter,
Right.
I can cut it and chuck it on the scales and I nail it. I'm really good
Oh,
at
wow.
it. Really? Yeah.
Like to the gram?
Yeah, like
Okay.
within a gram.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Well,
It's pretty butter related. No, I can, and it's relatively widely known that I can actually make a dolphin call.
and it's amazing. Can you please demonstrate?
Yeah, I
I
can.
think, I think it should be done.
You can't say that and not do it.
Okay.
I did this for a wedding. It was very nice. There you go.
See, that's perfect.
Go.
No, that was very good. Quiddy showed us last week his famous roots. Is there anyone famous in your family history?
No, not that I know of.
Fair. Simple as that.
I married into arguably Australia's best Riesling winemaking.
Very good. I believe it's a special birthday coming up. Did you
Yes,
give a small
yeah,
shout
yes,
out?
happy birthday to Wiggsy. Wiggs, my husband will turn the next year on Sunday. I don't know if he wants me to divulge how old he is.
No. Oh well. Just
We probably work it out.
Right. Happy birthday, Sam. Happy birthday.
Yes.
Famous people?
I don't know, but
I think they are.
I think
Well, your family's pretty famous, isn't it?
No, of course not. But I think having respected great growing families in
Yeah.
Barossa
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
And I think, in recent generations, my grandfather, my father, it's important
Yeah.
to have those sort of, not necessarily having them bowl into Bradman, but actually still, stepping up to grow grapes for the barossa and the wineries within,
Huge.
and they're
Part of the fabric, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Most loved or hated movie of all time, and why?
Oh, and why? My favourite film of all time is Fight Club.
Mm.
It's great, I really like it.
Just a ripping movie.
It's a ripping movie, yeah.
Quinny, you're on Quinny. Quinny, if you're watching, I'd love. We didn't actually find that out because I've got Quinny here from last week. Matchy.
Yes. My most enjoyed movie is pretty boring. Everyone sort of enjoys Shawshank Redemption, and that's mine.
Me too. It's a good movie.
But there is the most. Hate is a very strong word. I don't like it.
Of
I
course.
think it's most disliked.
Sure.
Ishtar. It's 1987.
Okay.
Dustin Hoffman, Warren Beatty, watched in the drive-in at I think it's Port Elliot, so Victor Harbour area, not anymore.
Yep.
Didn't understand then as a 10-year-old. Had a look at another 15 years
Very much.
time. Very bad. So do yourself a favour, don't.
I love it. What would you be doing if you couldn't do what you currently do?
I would possibly be making cheese.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in cheese making. I do it as a hobby.
Okay. Favourite cheese?
Oh, jeepers. I do like wash rind cheese.
Mm.
Yeah. Wash
Okay.
rind.
Very good. Don't you?
I eat cheese, but that's occupation.
I guess you could do it. Yeah. Cheese taster.
Yeah, not really. I'm probably growing grapes.
Makes
Makes
sense.
Well,
Totally.
I do grow grapes. I still, I've taken over the vineyard that my grandfather planted, so it makes sense for that to be the case.
Absolutely. Last question for the day. What food or wine pairing, or food and wine pairing, let's just say that, have you never eaten but would like to try?
No, never eaten. I have never had champagne and caviar. I mean, that's pretty classic.
It is, it's huge.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I sort of said earlier about
You
how
did.
it's not that important as long as. But I think having the opportunity in the next year, 2 years, to be able the opportunity to actually go overseas and actually be in a place,
Right.
and that's part of the matching.
Mm-hmm.
It's the experience
Yeah.
behind all of it. I mean, people come here and that experience is partially here. Great wine, great food.
Yeah.
But going to Piedmont and going to Several and going, yes, in that particular restaurant, go there and use them.
You're a fancy,
One day-
fancy man.
One day, hopefully, we'll do it again. Fancy.
Well, guys, that was awesome. Thank you. Quick fire round is over. Guys, that wraps us up this week for another episode of Knock Offs with Nick. Before we wrap up, by the way, thank you to both of you.
Pleasure.
It's
Thank you.
nice to have you and to kind of share a couple of your
been difficult.
insights. It's pretty
That's what we've been doing Friday.
Yes. Anyway.
Really got a Friday night.
But for those of you who are part of, obviously, our loyalty program, thank you so much, obviously, for tuning in. If this is your first experience with us, please go to hentleyfarm.com.au and obviously sign up and become a friend of the farm. We'd love to have that. Our next episode is coming up. We're doing these now monthly instead of the usual sort of fortnightly. I think I mentioned last week or something like that beforehand, which was incorrect. So we're doing them now monthly. And the next, I know it's a disgrace, but the next episode is a ripper. It's going to be, of course, all about our creation, one of our absolute icons as part of the collection. It is going to be a great episode. But from all of us here at the farm, a big cheers to you. We will see you, of course, in about a month's time, I believe. But cheers once again. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. We'll see you again.